Hello everybody, here at K&T, and I have a Model H dividing head. I filmed a whole video on this dividing head, taking it apart and cleaning it, and I was editing it, and I realized it was very boring. Not a whole lot going on, just taking it apart and cleaning it, as I said. And the internals of this particular dividing head are pretty boring. There's nothing very interesting about it, other than the fact that it is a K&T Model H dividing head. It's also a very fancy coffee cup holder. Has a 6-inch Cushman chuck on it. This back plate, there are a bunch of screws and a circle on the body of the dividing head. And I replaced them with cap head screws, and they stuck out too much. The counter bores were too small, and they were not deep enough for the cap head screws. So I had to take this back plate, flip it around, and mill a channel in it. I have number 3 plate for it. There are a total of 7 plates. It's also the spindle lock here. The screw pushes against the spindle lock, locks it, as the name says, and it doesn't really want to unlock. It drags very heavily. I'm still very stoked to have it. As I was saying, what was I saying? This is the output, the ever needed output to connect to the lead screw so that I can do helical milling. Obviously it's 90 degrees right now, but set it to 0 degrees for gear cutting. This stud here was broken, and I need to replace the nut with the new nut. I'm going to make 2 of them eventually. This casting right here, whenever I received it, was broken into 4 pieces. It didn't have this little plate on it. I contacted the seller and he gave me a new one. The reason I wanted a Kearney & Trucker Model H dividing head versus the typical Brown & Sharpe dividing heads is how strong this entire device is. 6 mounting points, 3 here, 3 there, very thick locks, very heavily built, very heavy duty. This whole dividing head weighs 135 pounds. I still need the tailstock for it to support long work. I have a tool holder I'm going to be sacrificing to make a center. And other than that, I need to start working on the banjo to mill some helical gears. Now, I don't have access to a lathe at the moment. I'm in the process of switching shops. This Kearney & Trucker mill has always been in this shop. All of my lathes, my anvil, my forge, they're at a different shop right now, and we're working on getting them over here. It's been quite a long process because my family has other priorities. Can't blame them for that. That's just life. The gear train. One other reason I like this dividing head is this output has minutes and seconds on it. Let's see if you can't see. 9 degrees at the spindle per revolution. I can use this as a rotary table, and I'd like to make a faceplate and put a faceplate on it so I could use it as a rotary table for, well, projects like the banjo, because that has some curves in it that I need to mill. Other than the dividing head, the only thing I wanted to talk about in this video, I am stoked to have this dividing head. This chuck is very nice. The seller was a great guy. I got it for $450 shipped. I think I got a fair deal on it. Not an amazing deal, because this dividing head has a lot of wear in it. It has chunks missing from people who milled into it, and the spindle has been milled into a lot. There's still enough of a enough meat there for the back plate to register against. The thing that sucks is the chuck doesn't register very well against the back plate. I'm going to have to get some drill rod and center this chuck up so it's good. The other thing I wanted to talk about, again, are these mill clamps that I've been messing around with. I went to take a bar, 1 inch or 1.5 inch steel, mild steel, cut it up, and 2 pieces in, the cutter started to spin on the arbor. It sheared the keyway, and it's because, if you can't see, this arbor is very chewed up. It's also too long for this machine. I'd really want an 18-inch arbor versus a 24-inch arbor. I'm going to finish these 2. I have some ideas. I'll share them with you guys whenever I am done making them. Making these 2. I'll be selling these 2 so that I can help fund a new arbor. I don't know if this cutter is done for or not, just because it's spun and it was pressing up against the work. I was going very slow, 1/2 inch per minute, I think 45 RPM. So if it did push on the arbor, it didn't push very much. It should be fine if I get a new arbor. My bushings and all that, oh, they're not over there. My bushings are all fine. I've mic'd all of them. These homemade ones I don't really use, but all the proper ones with actual keyways in them, those are all good. I'm still going to be developing these. I'm not stopping. They aren't a new idea. I know that they're not a new idea. I knew that whenever I posted that video. A lot of people seem to think that I was claiming that I invented these. I did not invent these. These have been around since milling machines have been around and boring mills, these clamps that will push against work. I'm actually using them here for my vise, because last time my vise got out of tram from the pressure. I figured a little stop would help. They're not new, and I didn't mean to claim that they were new. That was my fault for not clarifying. I apologize. I definitely understand why people thought that I was claiming that the idea is new. I wasn't. Just know that. I was not claiming that this idea is new. I couldn't find anywhere online where you could buy these, and I figured, well, if I can sit there and develop them, and maybe people will buy a couple. Not a whole lot, and I'm not going to make rich off of them, but maybe people will just like the idea, and maybe it'll catch on a little bit. Still working on those. I got a couple of ideas so that they can go at angles using the dividing head, making them so that the bottom is a hex or an octagon, so that they can slide, be at different angles. Not this version, of course. This version, I could sit there and mill a hex or an octagon into the bottom of that to get different angles. I would just leave it flat, but then that would give nothing for it to register in the T-slot against to actually resist the motions, especially at an angle. And at an angle, if there's nothing that's going to help resist any twisting motion, then it'll twist. Again, these are mostly for adjustment. To use them for clamping, be very, very careful. I'm using them for a stop and kind of a clamp. Not for a machine that has 20 horsepower and could rip out these studs. But if it's a smaller machine like mine, should be fine. Now, it also helps that my T-slots are very thick and very robust. I still need to take the actual spindle apart, but that's fine. This lock, I freed it up and it wasn't stuck for the longest time, or for a couple of days. And then I put the lock in and I tightened the lock and it stayed and it stuck and it drags and it's annoying. But I will persevere. Anyways, again, thank you for watching and have a great day.